So almost 26 years ago, this handsome young lad
He likes to see me blush.
walked into my life and introduced me to the Baha'i faith. We met and we had something in common. His dad is a Pentecostal minister. My dad is a Baptist minister, and that was our commonality. He shared with me that he was a Baha'i, and of course I wanted to learn a little bit more about that. I was in the church choir. He was in the Baha'i gospel choir. And I went with him to this event called the Vanguard of the Dawning. There is a gentleman there, a musician by the name of Eric Dozier, who was playing the piano at the time. Now, mind you, I grew up in a church that I only saw black people. There were no whites, there were no Latinos, just black people in my church. So to go to an event where there were people from all over the world, different races, the diversity was through the roof. The choir had every different race that you could imagine. And they were singing gospel songs. And they were happy, and they were laughing, and they were joyful. I began to sing with them in the audience because I recognized some of the songs because Larry and I had met, and he would sing some of these songs. Eric basically reached out to me and said, "Girl, why are you singing out there? Get on up here and sing with us." And I thought, wow, is it that open, this faith, where you can just come in the choir? Because in the church, you have to get baptized and you have to sit on the morning bench, and there's a lot of different things you have to do before you can actually participate.
Be filled with the Holy Ghost.
Or I don't think it's that serious. But you have to do a number of things before you can actually participate to that level. So I started singing in the choir with Larry and the Baha'i gospel choir. Before I knew it, I was getting phone calls from my dad asking, well, where are you? You have not been singing in the choir. And I had started going on the road with the Baha'i gospel choir, singing with them. It was with Van, and then Julie Doris, and then Eric Dozier. And I was swept away by the diversity. Then I started going to firesides, and I started learning about progressive revelation, about how all of these different manifestations from God were sent to us at different periods of time for different periods of people. And that Jesus was one of the manifestations as well, because of course, as a Baptist, you would think, well, do I have to turn my back on Jesus in order to become a Baha'i? And so the firesides were teaching me that Jesus was in this continuum of this progressive revelation, and that he's just as important as any other manifestation. And so then my ears perked, and I said, wow, I need to learn more about this faith. It took quite some time before I actually transitioned into becoming a Baha'i. I have to be very honest and tell you that there was a huge fear of me being rejected and outcasted from my family, because there's such a tradition in the family, the black family of church. Church is like your cornerstone. It's very vital to the black community. And so if you can imagine in their eyes walking away from Jesus or the church, that can be very detrimental. And then having two pastors as parents, what would they think of me? You know, what would they say about Larry? The black church has a lot of soul. I'll tell you that right now. It's a lot of soul. They jam. There's a lot of body movement, a lot of rhythm, a lot of music, a lot of instruments. Not so much in the Baha'i faith, in the choir, but nevertheless, the spirit is felt. I can always feel the spirit of the Lord in the choir. And I learned that this was my spiritual journey, and it was my spiritual walk with God. The Baha'is have a prayer book that has all these different wonderful prayers in it. And the specific prayer that I would pray was a prayer for detachment. And I learned how to detach myself from those things, my kindred especially, and attach myself to God. And so those type of things actually helped me to overcome this fear. And so that was my story and my journey to becoming a Baha'i. Now, I always thought that Larry would be right by my side when I actually became a Baha'i, because he started that journey and introduced me to the journey, but he actually was out of town. I took a trip up to the house of worship to hear the choir sing, and while I was sitting there, I thought, today is the day. Larry wasn't even here, and I was just so overjoyed. And then Larry returned home and said, well, what were you up to this weekend? And I said, oh, I just declared I became Baha'i. That's my story on how I actually became a Baha'i.